Hello, dear friends, how are you? And all of you who are joining us for the first time, welcome. I'm glad to meet you. And I hope you'll stay with us as I continue to relate my story in the days of the Holocaust, the Shoah, as well as my appeal to all of those who are against anti-Semitism to join us in our movement of United Against Anti-Semitism. All you have to do is send us a check, that is a click, not a check financially, but a check half, and we'll answer you. If you have to, you can write, send us an email. I left off last time as we were sitting in a little forest just out of our own town, and it was drizzling, it was chilly, and we heard the shots coming from the cemetery where the Jewish people were being slaughtered in mass. And we were petrified, scared, hungry, and wet, and no shelter. So we stayed till it became evening time. And my aunt began to talk to my uncle, saying that you cannot allow the children to stay overnight in this weather to sleep. We have to find a place where we can go in, maybe a farm somewhere will allow us to stay there. So my uncle went to the next farm and he spoke to the farmer, and sure enough, the farmer agreed we should come to him on the condition that we come in after dark when it's already night, and we go out of the silo before it turns light. So in the long summer days, the night was very short. We came in, it was late. We got out, it was early. So we just had a few little hours of rest in the straw, in the hay of the silo. We came in there and we stayed there. The farmer asked my uncle, what does he have to pay him for it as a sign of appreciation and for the risk he took. My aunt somehow grabbed a little package of soles, leather soles. Her father had a little fabric or a shoe store and repair shop and production of shoes. And she had the soles from her father's place, and she grabbed it with her. It was a package around that thick. And she gave it my uncle, and he took it and gave it to the farmer. And we left in the morning, the silo, went back into our little forest to stay there. And I'm not even sure if he gave us something to eat. We remained the next day making plans what to do, where we should hide, and what was next in the future. We were just lost. And so we went to the farmer, my uncle, and said to him, can we stay there next night? And they said, no, it's too dangerous. And besides, we have nothing to pay with. So we remained on the street that is in the forest overnight. And that was the beginning of an overnight life in the forest, in nature, so to speak, for the next almost 3 years. We stayed that next day, and the next day in the evening, we managed to get up and walk away to some other small forest. I remember we walked with, frankly, I had no notion which direction we were going, where we were going. All I knew is that we had to go away from this place, and we were going to a place further away from our town and more into the area which is wooded, more forest land. And so we came to a place. It was a whole night's walk, and we stayed there and found a little space among the trees. We had no coats, no blankets or anything to use for cover. Nevertheless, we managed. And then at night, my uncle and his brother-in-law, Zadel, went out to scout around the next areas. And they came into some farms. Number one, they asked for some help, some food, and many of the farmers were kind enough to give some bread, give us some potatoes, and that's what they brought back for us to eat. At the same time, they also made contact with the nearest farm where there was a lady, a widow farmer, and they came into her and she was very helpful and also gave them some food to take for us. In the meantime, they also talked to the farmers and found out what was going on, if there's any report about Jewish people being saved or have run away from the ghetto. And they were informed that indeed some Jewish people are known to have gathered in the Pushcha, in the Lipichanskaya Pushcha, further away from where we were. So after a day or two, my uncle Shlomo and Zedel, his brother-in-law, gathered a little food for us so we would have what to eat for the next few days. And they took off in the night to go to the next forest to find out if they could encounter other survivors of our town and see what was going on, where there's another place to hide, because we knew we couldn't stay where we were for any long time. But we were left alone, 2 women and the children. In many ways we were quite petrified, without shelter, without blankets. We were just huddling with each other. And we had problems even making a fire at night, because if you make a fire at night, it can be seen from far away. So you have to be careful how you do it, and you have to shelter it or hide it in such a way that it should not reflect from a distance. And so we waited for our men, my uncle and his brother-in-law, Zedel, should come back. And every day was like a year or longer. After a few days, they returned from the forest. And indeed, they went to Lipichanskaya Pushcha. There, they found that some Jewish people who survived were hiding already there. Some young men were trying to organize partisan units to put up some resistance against what was happening. And they also told us that that man who was our landlord when we were in the ghetto in his house, and when we left the ghetto, said to us that he has a friend, a farmer, who's going to help him out, but unfortunately he cannot take us along with him because we'd be too many people, too large a group, so he must go alone. And he went alone, and we were left behind. He came with his wife and 2 children to the forest. The farmer wouldn't let him in. He was too afraid. He says, it's too dangerous for me to have you here. You must go. And he left, and he came to the forest. And in the forest, there was no food. There was nothing to eat. And he began to eat some berries, and the berries were poisonous. And he developed some stomach problem, a reaction, maybe an ulcer. And after a few days, he bleeded and he died. So his wife and 2 children were left fatherless and as a widow in the forest to fend on their own for the next time. I am not sure if at the end of the war they survived. I think they perished. So my uncle came back to us and brought us this sad report. In the meantime, we continued for a few more days sitting where we were, and they were going at night to some of the farmers to, again, beg for food, and some farmers helped and some didn't. The lady which I mentioned before, the widow farmer, she was very gracious and helpful. In order to get into her house, my uncle had to go in a roundabout way in order not to show her that we were not too far from her farm, and to give the impression that we were actually on the other side of where we were, the other side of the house, in order to mislead and not to leave any traces about where we were, because there was always the danger of people informing against us, and if anybody would find out, so our life was in danger. Consequently, we kept on living there for some time. At the end of our stay there, before we left, and that's an interesting story, my uncle and his brother-in-law told her that we were going to move on to some other forest, deeper into the forest, into the Pushcha, into the great forest known as Lipichanskaya Pushcha, and that we'll be going away the next day. I remember she used to bring us, he used to bring from her cooked potatoes, and sometimes raw potatoes, which would put in the ashes of the fire and bake it and eat it, and that was a delight. Anyway, we told her that we were going to go away, and they said goodbye to her and thanked her for her help and assistance. As that happened, the next day, all of a sudden in the afternoon, she shows up in our camp and says hello. We were shocked. She knew all along where we were. And she came over to wish us well and bid us farewell. And she brought some food for us to take along on the road. And that made on us such a wonderful impression to see how this woman went out of her way to help us and pretend she knew nothing when she knew everything that was taking place all around her. And unfortunately, I don't remember her name, as I don't remember the names of many other people. But she has left an indelible impression and memory in my mind of her. So that's where we are living for today. We're getting ready to march at night from one little forest into a big jungle forest that was awaiting us in the distance. I wish you all the best and look forward to seeing you next week. Stay well.